Hi, I'm Curious Vedant, and welcome to season 3 of my podcast. Today, my guest is Dr. Swathy, who is a physician and a researcher with an interest in sleep research. She is working towards becoming a sleep medicine clinician scientist. Hi, Swathy. Welcome to my show.
Hi Vedant, thank you so much for having me. I'm very happy to be here.
I'm also very excited for this. I do a lot of things every day, and if I don't sleep, I will have time to do double the amount of stuff. I'm curious to know, is sleep that important?
Yes, Vedant, you have a really good question. A lot of people around the world think that sleep is actually not important for us, but I think I'll take time to explain to you how important sleep is for everyone, like not just humans, but even animals. But I'll stick to the human part of it for this podcast, yeah? So, when you're looking at how much sleep do you get at night every day?
Probably around 10 to probably about 10 hours.
Yeah, that's a good number because for someone your age, you're supposed to be getting between 9 to 11 hours of sleep on average. And if you look at for your parents, they're supposed to be getting between 7 to 9 hours of sleep every day. And that is the amount of sleep we need to stay healthy because sleep actually affects our health and well-being in many, many ways. So, one of the main things that sleep helps with, especially for someone your age, is that it produces this chemical. When you're sleeping, your body produces a chemical called growth hormone, which helps in exactly what it says. It helps you grow. So, for kids who are not getting enough sleep, they might actually end up being smaller than the other kids their age. And so, sleep actually helps you build your muscles, build your bones, and like grow taller and grow healthier. Another thing that sleep really helps with is your memory formation. So we think that when we sleep, our brains are actually shut off and there's nothing happening, but your brains are just as active or even more active when we're sleeping than when we're not sleeping. So your brain is actually like processing all the information that you've taken in over the day or even over the past few days, and like it's collecting all that and removing all the information that you don't need to remember, and then solidifying some information that it thinks it's important to remember, and basically helps with your short-term and long-term memory formation. So another thing that's very interesting is that sleep helps in creative problem solving. So a lot of the times you may have heard, like if there's a problem or somebody is experiencing some difficult situation, you may have heard of the phrase, let's sleep on it. So what they're trying to say is that if you sleep, you might actually wake up with a good solution or a better solution than what you actually have before. So those are some of the interesting stuff. But for our health in general, sleep is very important in maintaining and building immunity, which will help us like fight viruses, for instance, or fight any infections. So I'm getting my vaccine tomorrow for the current virus that's going around. And I want to make sure that I actually sleep well today and for a few days afterwards to make sure that this vaccine that I'm taking works well and helps me fight any possible infection in the future better. Last reason, it helps you maintain your hormonal balance well. So a lot of the times when adults don't sleep well and like their sleep is restricted continuously for months on end or years on end, they might end up developing conditions like blood pressure, high blood pressure, or diabetes, obesity, and a lot of other health conditions. So you see why sleep is important, right?
Yes, I do. And is it okay, like example, yesterday I stayed up late because I don't know, I was having fun. And I only had 8 hours of sleep. Once in a while, is that okay?
That's a very smart question. Yes, once in a while, it is all right to lose some sleep, and then your body builds what is called sleep debt. So it makes you want to sleep more the next day. Or I mean, if you haven't slept enough, your body will tell you that I'm sleepy, so I want to sleep in longer the next day. So if this goes on for a very long time, you might accumulate a lot of sleep debt. But if it's just once in a while, it's absolutely fine.
And also, if your brain is working when you sleep, you said, right? So where do the dreams come from? Because sometimes people have dreams. Example, maybe people riding on ponies and stuff like that. Where do those come from?
So we don't understand exactly why and where dreams come from, but so what the current speculation or hypothesis is that dreams are basically results of your brain patching together and making different associations with all this information that you've taken in throughout the day when you're awake. So you may have seen something, or you may have experienced something, and your brain is going back to these experiences and then trying to find ways to interpret it or associate it with some other memory. So we think it's a way in which our brains can process and understand information that we're taking in every day better, and also a way in which we can process our emotions that we've experienced all over the day better. So sometimes you might actually feel very happy in your dreams. Sometimes you might wake up scared. So these are all ways in which your brain is helping you process these emotions through your dreams.
And also sometimes you don't get dreams.
Yeah, so a lot of the times, if you might actually remember your dream if you wake up naturally, you just wake up and then you probably remember what you were dreaming about. But a lot of the times you actually tend to forget your dream just a few minutes after you wake up. So a nice way to remember your dreams and record them is actually to wake up and then write them down somewhere. So you can remember what we were dreaming about, and even the details will come to you more easily after you record it that way.
How does sleepwalking work?
So sleepwalking is actually it's a sleep disorder. So it's something that sleep doctors treat. So what's happening during sleepwalking is, generally when we sleep, our muscles are actually become powerless. So we're not supposed to be able to move. And like I said, our brain is still active when we're sleeping, right? So what happens in sleepwalkers is that they tend to start acting out what the brain is processing, instead of having that suppression of muscle activity that they were actually supposed to have during sleep. So they're asleep, but they're still acting, have their muscle activity. So which is why sometimes people move a lot during their sleep, people sleepwalk, and they might not even remember that they're doing that.
Mm-hmm. Like example, sometimes I sleep talk and I don't know.
Yeah.
We all sleep. And if we sleep for too long, people call us lazy. How much is too much sleep?
So, like I said, every age group there's a specific amount of sleep you need, and anything more than or less than is bad for you. I mean, I wouldn't say it's absolutely bad, but then anything more than the prescribed amount of sleep for a particular age group or less than might mean that there's some problem with their sleep, or it actually can lead to health issues because of their sleep patterns. Like for adults, you're required to sleep between 7 to 9 hours on average. This does not mean that every adult needs 7 to 9 hours. It's just that most adults in the world need this. And a lot of the times, most of these adults, if they sleep much lesser or much more than 7 to 9 hours, they tend to develop problems with their memory, problems with their health. They might end up getting a lot of chronic diseases more easily, and they might also end up they're more prone to getting depression and all these kind of things.
What do you do as a physician?
I don't actually practice as a physician at the moment. So I trained as a physician, but I got into research because I was very interested in research. So I worked with sleep research for about 4 years, and then I wanted to try a few other things before I went back full time and spent my entire life working with sleep research and medicine. So I'm currently working in the pharma industry, but I'm really looking forward to going back into sleep research and medicine. But what a sleep doctor does, or if I specialize as a sleep doctor, is basically looking at the different sleep disorders people can have, and how these sleep disorders can range from something called obstructive sleep apnea, where for some people who snore, they actually stop breathing for a few seconds every time their airway gets blocked. So this is actually very dangerous because they might have a few seconds where their body is not getting an oxygen supply, or their brain is not getting an oxygen supply, and it can cause a lot of diseases. And some very famous actors have also suffered from this and have also died from it. So it's a very important issue to solve. And apart from that, there's a lot of different diseases. So, like you said, sleepwalking is actually something sleep doctors can solve. And people with issues like insomnia can be treated with by sleep doctors. And then people with issues like narcolepsy, where you suddenly fall asleep, can be treated by sleep doctors. And there's a lot of other things that a sleep doctor can treat.
When did you get interested in sleep research?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Vedant. So I started getting interested in sleep when I was a medical student, and as a medical student, you actually lose a lot of sleep because you have to study very long hours. You're spending a lot of time in the night and waking up early in the morning to study, and then you have to, in your last year in medicine, you have to do an internship where you're actually asked to do night shifts, where you're working all night treating your patients. And then you start at 8 a.m. one day, and then you end at 3 or 4 p.m. the next day. So I lost a lot of sleep that year, and I realized that it was affecting my body and the way I was able to perform tasks, and how my body was reacting to infections or sickness. If I got a cold, I got it faster when I was not sleeping well. So I thought this would be a very interesting field to study. So I was very lucky that when I went for my master's in Sweden, there was a professor who was studying exactly the same subject. And I went up to him and told him that I'm interested in working with him for my master's thesis, and he was very happy to take me on, and haven't looked back since then. I really loved and enjoyed working in the field.
Maybe when I grow up, I'm going to get interested.
Yeah, maybe. It's a very young field of research. So I think there's a lot more to learn. There's the brain and sleep is literally still a mystery for a lot of us, most of us.
What are your hobbies?
I really like drawing.
I love drawing too.
Yeah. We drew together earlier today, right? And you drew so well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I actually have a Instagram hand page where I draw and post about sleep and sleep related content. It's called Sleep Doodles. If you want to check it out, you can check it out at Sleep Doodles on Instagram.
If your Instagram page is called Sleep Doodles, do you draw things about sleep and people sleeping, or other things?
So what I do with the page is draw card. I do a lot of different things. So I started off with me trying to draw about the latest research that came out in the field, and I wanted to illustrate the science that I wanted to talk about, because a lot of people were asking me questions about sleep when I got into the field. So I thought this would be a very nice way to answer those questions. And so I post about tips for sleeping better, what new studies came out and how you can you interpret those results for your everyday sleep. And then I actually also have a comic that I started about called Fukuro the Salary Owl. It is basically about so anyone who sleeps late and wakes up late is called a night owl in the sleep research world. And so basically, I'm talking about how this night owl has to survive in a regular, like everyday office life where we're actually forced to wake up early and work long hours when night owls actually prefer sleeping. So, yeah, that's one of the other things that I do with my sleep doodles page.
That's very nice. I've seen some of your doodles when you showed it to me when you were teaching me how to draw lots of stuff. They were very nice.
Thank you, Vedant.
Especially that bus that you just made.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on my show.
Thanks for having me, Vedant.
This was very fun. I learned a lot about sleep.
Yeah, I'm very happy to be on the show, and I'm happy to answer any other questions you have for me, even if in the future.
Dear listeners, follow my Facebook page, Curious Vedant, to get updates on my upcoming episodes. To listen at leisure on your phone and get notified about future episodes, subscribe by searching for Curious Vedant wherever you get your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can also listen to my show on CuriousVedant.com. Thank you for listening to Curious Vedant, and don't forget to rate and leave comments.